There comes a moment in every person's life when they look around at the hours they trade, the money they earn, and the life they've built. And something deep inside whispers, there has to be more than this. Not more stuff, more freedom. The freedom to wake up and own your time. The freedom to say no to things that don't align. The freedom to choose how your energy is spent, not because your schedule is empty, but because your assets are working while you sleep. You see, most people don't chase money, they chase safety. They don't want wealth. They want permission to stop worrying, permission to breathe, permission to live. But here's the great tragedy. Most of them die without ever finding it because they followed a broken model. They sold their hours like it was the only currency they had. And every morning, they wake up to an alarm clock, not because they're excited to rise, but because they have to, or everything falls apart. That is not freedom. That is modern slavery dressed in a paycheck. But you are about to break that cycle, not by magic, not by hype, but by principles. Because wealth isn't about luck. It's not about being born into it. It's not about winning the system. It's about understanding how money moves. And then planting seeds today that will grow into financial orchards that feed you forever. And the first seed is this: money is not the goal. Cash flow is. You could have $1 million in the bank, but if it's not flowing, you're still a prisoner. Passive income is the game changer. It's the model the wealthy whisper about but never scream. It's the quiet machine behind every empire. And it doesn't come from hustle. It comes from design. But here's the warning. Passive income is not easy money. It's not sitting on a beach while the universe deposits checks in your name. That's fantasy. What we're talking about here is something deeper, something sacred. The act of creating systems that serve others so well, they keep serving you in return. Money is a byproduct of value, value delivered with structure. That's the formula. And here's the good news. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need a huge audience. You don't need capital from a VC fund or a perfect economy. What you need is a shift from the consumer to the creator, from the laborer to the architect, from the one who earns to the one who builds. Because if you can build once wisely, intelligently, patiently, you'll never be owned by your time again. You don't need 100 streams. You need one that works while you rest. That's not just income. That's liberation. Step 1, shift from earning to building. The first step is not financial. It's philosophical. Because until your mind shifts, your money won't. Most people are trained to think like earners, not builders. They think in terms of effort per hour, not in terms of systems per asset. They say things like, I need a raise, instead of, I need a structure that earns without me. They obsess over getting paid more for their time, but never stop to question why they're selling time in the first place. And that, right there, is the trap. You are not here to trade your life for wages. You are here to build machines of value, machines that outlast your labor, that don't clock out, that don't ask for vacation, that don't sleep, that don't burn out. And the only thing standing between you and that future is the way you think about money, until you start asking, what can I build today that will keep giving tomorrow? You will stay in the loop of exhaustion. This step requires brutal honesty. Look at your life. Look at your income. Ask yourself, how much of what I earn is still tied to my presence? And how much is flowing because of a system I created once that now runs again and again without needing me to show up? If the answer is 0, good, because now you're awake. Now you're in the game. Now you're dangerous, because now you know you're not behind, you're just unleveraged. But once you shift that identity from earner to builder, everything else becomes possible. You begin seeing opportunities not as gigs, but as blueprints. You stop chasing payouts and start crafting pipelines. You begin to build assets, digital, real estate, licensing, distribution, intellectual property, things that produce value while you sleep, while you travel, while you grow. And make no mistake, building is harder than earning at first. But the reward is exponential, because when you build right, you free your time. And when you free your time, you free your mind. And when your mind is free, you become unstoppable. Step 2, build once, serve forever. This is the step where most people get lost, not because it's complicated, but because it demands vision, repeatable value. Think about it. The author writes the book once, and it sells for years. The artist records the song once, and it streams while they sleep. The teacher records the course once, and it empowers thousands. The investor buys the asset once, and it generates cash flow monthly. One act, infinite return. That's the game. That's the formula. Build once, serve forever. But to build once, you must go deep. You must slow down long enough to ask, what can I build that solves a problem so well it keeps solving it long after I'm done? That's where true passive income is born, not from gimmicks, but from value that keeps flowing. Don't look for what's trendy. Look for what's timeless. Build something that can scale without you, something that can live without you, and something that one day can be sold without you. Because the goal isn't just money while you rest. The goal is an exit. A point where your creation is so valuable it becomes a sellable system. That's not a side hustle. That's an empire. And it all begins with this question. What will you build once and build well enough that it continues to serve without your daily breath? Because that's how freedom begins. Not with volume, not with speed, but with a single, intelligent, leveraged, repeatable creation that outworks, outlives, and outlasts you. Step 3, automate the flow, then get out of the way. This is the step where the real magic happens, not because you work more, but because you let go right. Because now that you've built something of value, something that lives beyond the moment, the final piece is removing yourself from the center. Most people build something great and then sabotage its power by staying too attached. They become the bottleneck. They micromanage every move. They hold on too tightly. And in doing so, they kill the very freedom they set out to create. True passive income is born not just from creation, but from automation. Systems, delegation, technology, infrastructure, flow. You must automate the flow of value so that the engine runs without your constant ignition. Whether it's digital delivery, recurring subscriptions, affiliate commissions, licensing royalties, dividend investments, or scalable business structures, the principle is the same. Design the machine, then get out of the way. Stop being the worker. Become the architect. Stop trying to control every transaction. Start building environments where value flows without your fingerprints on every detail. Because until you detach from the process, your income will always be limited by your presence. But when you automate, when you step aside and let systems breathe, you finally step into what the wealthy have always understood. Money works harder than people when systems are strong. You don't need more hustle, you need better structure. You don't need more effort, you need more elegance. That's the difference between running and reigning. Runners burn out, builders rise above. The world may applaud hustle, but freedom rewards intelligence. And intelligence means this: you don't get rich by working harder, you get rich by building smarter. So start tracking every process, every touch point, every repeated task, and ask, how do I remove myself without reducing the value? That's the key, not abandonment, empowerment. Handing off the right things to the right system so you can focus on vision, not transactions. On growth, not grunt work. On creating the next wave, not paddling the last one. Because when your income flows while you sleep, you've entered the rare air where time bends to your design. And that is not just passive income. That is strategic liberation. Because at the end of the day, it's not about money. It never was. It's about choice. The choice to wake up and decide where your energy goes. The choice to say yes to what matters and no to what doesn't, not because you're rebelling, but because you're aligned. Passive income is not about escaping work. It's about escaping meaningless work. It's not about laziness. It's about leverage. It's about stepping into the creator's seat of your life and saying, from this moment forward, I will no longer trade my soul for survival. I will build systems. I will invest in value. I will plant and protect income trees that bear fruit long after the effort is gone. That is not fantasy. That is design. And here's the deepest truth you must understand. You will build either way. You will either build freedom or you will build a prison. You will either build wealth that works for you or you will work for someone else's wealth. You will either build streams that nourish your future or you will drain yourself maintaining someone else's. Passive income isn't extra. It's essential. Because when your income is passive, your thinking becomes active. You stop chasing and start choosing. You stop surviving and start strategizing. You stop asking, how much can I make this month? And start declaring, how much freedom can I fund this year? And from there, you live differently. You lead differently. You parent differently. You create, speak, move, and decide from a place of grounded sovereignty, not financial fear. That's what changes the world. Not another rich person, but a free person. Someone who has tamed their income. Someone who has stopped worshiping busyness and started sculpting legacy. Someone who doesn't need a title or a corner office or a LinkedIn badge to know their worth because their systems speak for them. Their structures whisper into the night. My creator was wise. My creator built for generations, not just paychecks. My creator planted me not for applause, but for impact. So don't just dream of financial freedom. Design it. Don't just write down your goals. Structure them into machines. Don't just get inspired by other people's results. Build your own process. Because the time to start was yesterday. But the next best time is right now. No more excuses. No more waiting. No more telling yourself you'll figure it out later. Later is a lie. Now is the truth. Now is the door. Now is the hammer in your hand and the blueprint in your brain. Now is when you stop scrolling and start scaling. Now is when you take the first awkward step and begin to build what future you will thank you for every single day. So rise. Build with vision. Build with structure. Build with the ruthless clarity of someone who refuses to let their best life be trapped behind a job title. Step into the rare air of those who earn while they sleep, grow while they rest, and lead while their systems speak on their behalf. Because that is what passive income really is. Not just money, but freedom by design. You must stop thinking like a worker who occasionally dreams of freedom. You must start thinking like an engineer who designs freedom into their daily life. Every choice you make is either building equity or bleeding it. Every subscription you pay, every tool you ignore, every hour you waste, it's either tightening or loosening the noose around your financial potential. Passive income isn't about getting rich quick. It's about getting smart permanently. It's about making decisions that compound. It's about taking 6 months to build something that pays you for 6 years. It's the difference between planting a seed and begging for shade. And most people are so busy begging for promotions, for permission, for temporary relief, they never stop to ask, what could I plant today that keeps giving for decades? This is a war on urgency. Because passive income is never born in panic. It's born in patience with purpose. You must detach from the culture of instant validation. You must stop chasing dopamine and start designing dividends. You must learn to delay pleasure for the sake of perpetual reward. Not because you're being frugal, but because you're forging future power. The people you admire are the ones who own their time, move with lightness, speak without desperation. They didn't buy their freedom at the mall. They built it brick by brick, month by month, idea by tested idea. They spent years doing what others wouldn't, so they could spend decades living how others can't. That's the game. That's the assignment. You're not late, you're just early in the shift. And if you stay with it, if you keep building when no one claps, keep refining when the revenue is slow, keep showing up to tweak your system like a sculptor shaping marble eventually, the thing you've built becomes inevitable. And when it does, you realize this isn't just passive income. It's perpetual freedom coded into structure. And then there's the deeper layer, one most people never talk about, the emotional liberation. Because once your needs are met without trading time, your decisions change. You no longer say yes out of fear. You no longer bend your boundaries for a check. You no longer silence your truth to stay employed. You move with integrity because your survival is no longer for sale. You create from fullness, not stress. You give because you want to, not because you're dependent. That's not just financial freedom. That's emotional sovereignty. That's how legacies are born, not from hustling harder, but from operating without fear. And to get there, you need one thing more than anything else: inner alignment with a long game. The long game sees beyond this month, beyond this launch, beyond this quarter's target. The long game is not emotional, it's engineered. You don't rise by mood, you rise by system. And when that system works while you rest, while you think, while you lead, that's when you break the generational curse of working until death. That's when you step into what few dare to claim. A life designed by vision, not reaction. You cannot outsource this. You cannot shortcut your way into sovereignty. You must build, not wish. You must choose, not hope. Because wealth does not arrive to those who wait. It arrives to those who construct the container strong enough to hold it. And that container is you, your mind, your systems, your discipline, your decision to create cash flow that lives beyond your labor. That means you must embrace learning, not as an escape, but as a weapon. You must devour the boring books, study the unsexy systems, pay attention to how money moves in silence where real freedom hides. That means building your digital footprint, learning how to monetize your expertise, turning ideas into products, products into systems, systems into streams, streams into freedom. You must become obsessed with leverage. Ask yourself daily, where am I doing what a system could be doing? Where am I spending presence where I could be deploying process? And if you find a leak, you seal it. Not next week, today. Because every leak is costing you time, and time is not renewable. That's the brutal truth. You can get money back. But time lost to inefficient work is a debt you never recover. That's why automation is not a tech strategy. It's a life strategy. And delegation is not a business tactic. It's a spiritual commitment to focus. Because when you delegate well, you honor your highest contribution. And when you automate with intelligence, you scale your soul's value without burning your soul's energy. That is wealth, not status, not accumulation, alignment. Time flowing through your day like oxygen, not chains. Income flowing through your accounts like rivers, not drips. And purpose flowing through your voice like thunder, not whisper. But make no mistake, this isn't just about tools. It's about identity. Because no amount of strategy will override a mindset addicted to being needed. Some people want to be overworked because their worth is still tied to busyness. But until you break that addiction, you'll never build freedom. You'll always sabotage scale. You'll cling to every task like it proves your value, and in doing so, you'll strangle your potential. You must decide once and for all that your worth is not measured by effort. It's measured by outcome. And outcomes scale when systems do. The true builder is not the busiest person. The true builder is the one who designs results to happen even in their absence. That's leadership. That's wealth. That's the power of the one who understands that money is a servant, not a master. And the best servants don't sleep, don't stop, don't burn out. They just flow quietly, relentlessly, daily, while you live. Because here's the ultimate truth they never taught you in school. Money is not the prize, freedom is. And freedom is not something you stumble upon. It's something you engineer. And like all great architecture, it must be intentional, measured, anchored, structured. Freedom is not the absence of work. It's the presence of uninterrupted alignment. And the only way to live in alignment is to extract your survival from your effort. You must design income to flow regardless of emotion. You must create systems that don't care if you're tired. Don't flinch if you're on vacation. Don't wait for your next burst of motivation. The game changes when you move from inspiration to installation, from energy to infrastructure, from motivation to mechanism. That's when you stop riding emotional roller coasters and start owning stable ground. That's when your income becomes predictable because your systems are reliable. And when that happens, everything opens. Not just time, not just money, but space. Space to think, to create, to feel, to listen, to contribute beyond survival, to breathe and ask, now that I am no longer owned by a job, a clock, or a crisis, who do I want to become? That's what passive income gives you, not just wealth, but space for reinvention. Because until your money works, your soul won't speak. It's too distracted, too weighed down, too busy calculating survival to dream beyond limits. But once the pressure lifts, once you know the bills are covered by what you've built, you begin to re-enter life with the fullness you were born for. You laugh louder, you love deeper, you lead clearer, you live, and not just for the weekend, not just for the next bonus, but for the mission, the legacy, the inner calling that was buried under the noise of just trying to keep up. And all of that begins with one decision. I will build, not just earn, not just cope, not just rise for applause, but build value that endures beyond me, that earns when I sleep, that expands while I grow, that blesses others long after I'm gone. That decision once made shifts everything. Because when you choose to build, you no longer fear the economy. You no longer beg for stability. You become the source of your future. And that, my friend, is what it means to be free. Because in the end, it's not about money. It never was. It's about what money frees inside you. Who you become when you're no longer desperate. Who you become when every decision isn't filtered through fear. Who you become when your energy is no longer chained to survival, but lifted by purpose. That is the man or woman the world is waiting for. The version of you that thinks clearly, moves boldly, gives generously, speaks freely, not because you're rich in ego, but because you're rich in structure, rich in stillness, rich in leverage. And the only way to become that person is to build. Build not from hype, but from hunger. Build not from greed, but from vision. Build not for applause, but for impact. Because one day, years from now, someone will walk into a better life and not even know your name. But they will live freer because of something you built. A course, a book, a system, a property, a foundation, a movement. And that's the legacy no job title can buy. That's the wealth no salary can match. That's the kind of life that echoes. And it starts now. It starts here. It starts not with perfection, but with permission. Your own permission to begin, to start messy, to build slowly, to invest deeply, to walk forward even when the map isn't finished, to say, I don't know everything, but I know I will not keep selling my time for security. To say, I will master this. I will leverage this. I will design a life I no longer need to escape from. You're not too late. You're not too broken. You're not too old or too unqualified. You are exactly where you need to be to begin the next chapter of your life, the one where your income becomes effortless because your mind became disciplined enough to build something bigger than you. So rise. Rise beyond excuses. Rise beyond delay. Rise with a kind of fierce clarity that leaves no more room for cheap distractions. Rise with the blueprint in one hand and the belief in the other. And take your first step not when you're ready, but because you're done waiting. The future you want already exists. It's just waiting for the systems you haven't built yet. Go build them and become unshakably free. There is a slow death that doesn't come with a scream. It doesn't come with a bang or a tragic accident or a public failure. No, this death is quiet, silent, invisible. It arrives wrapped in ordinary days. It creeps into your calendar like fog at dawn. And the most terrifying thing about it is that you don't even know it's happening until you wake up one day and everything is gone. Not your job, not your money, but your edge, your fire, your reason, your roar. Because careers don't die from catastrophe. They die from cancerous comfort, from the unspoken agreement you made with mediocrity to stop trying, to stop learning, to stop becoming. The tragedy is not that people don't have talent. It's that they stop sharpening it. They stop stretching. They stop questioning. And without knowing, they become employees of their own fear, prisoners of habit dressed up like routine. And maybe that's you. Maybe you still show up, but you stopped arriving. Maybe your body's in the meeting, but your soul checked out 3 promotions ago. Maybe you used to dream, and now you just cope. You scroll, you nod, you fake smiles and send emails, and play the part of a professional, but inside, something is missing. And it's not just momentum, it's not just direction, it's you. The real you, the hungry you, the undeniable you, the version of you that used to wake up before the alarm and go to bed with purpose burning behind your eyes. Where did that version go? Here's the answer. You buried them, not in one day, but slowly, with habits you didn't even question, with rituals you let slide, with standards you silently lowered, with corners you casually cut, with distractions you called deserved breaks, with lies you called realism, with excuses you labeled balance. And now, that slow death has taken root. But let me be clear, you are not too far gone. This is not over. This isn't a funeral, this is a resurrection. This is your moment of sacred confrontation, not with the world, with yourself. Because the biggest threat to your career isn't the market. It's not your boss. It's not a lack of funding or credentials or opportunity. It's the 5 deadly habits living rent-free in your system right now, dragging you away from greatness in the name of being practical. Let's call them what they are. Silent poisons. And here's the cost. Every day you tolerate them, you trade your potential for predictability. You give up the chance to rise for the comfort of staying the same. You surrender mastery for mediocrity, leadership for laziness, and long-term legacy for short-term convenience. But no more. Because if you're going to reclaim your greatness, you have to identify the enemy. You have to rip the mask off the habit that's whispering lies into your destiny. And you have to replace it not with empty motivation, but with principles that demand your excellence. So let's begin the reckoning. Let's enter the arena where comfort goes to die and commitment is reborn. Let's confront the assassins of your future. Let's awaken what you tried to bury. Let's tear down the scaffolding of smallness you've built around your career. Let's reintroduce you to the fire you were born with, the fire that never needed permission to rise. And understand this. You don't need more tips. You don't need hacks. You need a spiritual reset on how you show up every day. You need philosophy, not tactics, because tactics change trends. But philosophy, it changes people. It changes how you think, how you see, how you move. That's what Jim Rohn taught us. And that's what I'm here to bring back to life inside you. So listen not just with your ears, but with your conviction, with the part of you that remembers who you were before you got tired, before you settled, before you started pretending that this is just how life is. Because that part of you, the warrior, is still alive. And today, we feed it. Today, we sharpen the sword. Today, we face the 5 enemies, stealing your impact, your growth, your leadership, and your legacy. Not with fear, not with doubt, but with ruthless awareness and unrelenting self-responsibility. Because if you don't kill these habits, they will kill your career. And you'll wake up one day with a resume full of experiences, a LinkedIn profile full of buzzwords, a title you can brag about, and no soul left behind your name. But not you. Not anymore. Today, we take it back. Today, we begin again, not as who you were, but as who you were meant to become. Deadly habit. 1. Living in reaction, not intention. It begins innocently. A notification buzzes. A meeting runs long. A request comes in. An email chain drags you into drama you didn't ask for. You respond. You adjust. You fix. You reply. You react. And before you even finish your coffee, your day has been hijacked by other people's agendas. You didn't create. You didn't lead. You didn't carve forward. You just reacted. And that might seem normal because it is. But normal is killing you. Reaction is the death of vision. It's the slow erosion of leadership. It's the invisible force that turns driven people into drowning people. And if you live in reaction long enough, you forget what intention even feels like. You lose your compass. You start calling survival strategy. You start confusing busy with productive. And worst of all, you start losing yourself in the current of constant response. You weren't born to be a firefighter of everyone else's chaos. You weren't born to spend your best mental hours in your inbox, solving problems that don't grow your purpose. You weren't made to check boxes and feel empty at the end of the day. No, you were born to build, to design, to declare the direction of your life with courage, not convenience. Living in reaction is a form of surrender, and you're better than that. Because every time you choose reaction over intention, you pay a price. You give up the sacred energy of vision. You trade mastery for management. And you slowly, tragically become someone who's always busy but never advancing. Always involved but never creating. Always connected but never anchored. The greatest leaders don't live in response. They live in preparation. They don't wait to see what the day brings. They bring the day to its knees. With clarity, with structure, with bold priorities that scream louder than interruptions. And here's the kicker. Reaction feels urgent, but it's rarely important. Intention feels quiet, but it shapes everything. So, how do you escape the prison of reaction? You decide. Every morning, before the world gets loud, you write the 3 things that matter most. You set the tone. You claim your hours. You build walls around your vision like it's a fortress under siege, because it is. You say no to things that sound urgent but steal your legacy. You disconnect to reconnect. You stop being a digital servant and become a deliberate sculptor of your life. You stop waking up and falling into your phone and start waking up and falling into your mission. Because here's what they won't teach you in school. Nobody builds a legendary career by constantly reacting. Nobody leaves a legacy by answering everyone's needs except their own. Nobody reaches greatness by checking email before checking their own soul. You must move from reaction to creation. You must master the art of saying no, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. You must reclaim your mental real estate from the cheap rent of other people's expectations. You must protect your peace with the ferocity of a lion guarding its cubs, because your peace is not luxury. It is leverage. It is your only chance at thinking clearly, deciding wisely, and building courageously. Every minute you live in reaction is a minute you hand over your potential to someone else's priorities. So today, not tomorrow, draw the line. You will no longer live as a puppet of distraction. You will no longer hand your time to anything that doesn't build your future. You will no longer confuse being responsive with being responsible. You will own the direction. You will define the terms. You will design the day, because the person who commands the first 2 hours of their day commands the next 20 years of their life. No more reactivity. From now on, you move with intention. Deadly habit. 2. Tolerating low standards in private. You don't rise or fall in public. You rise or fall in the dark, behind the curtain. In the invisible moments when no one's watching, when no applause is given, when the room is silent and the only voice left is your own. And that's where your real standard lives. Not the one you post, not the one you preach, but the one you actually practice when the world isn't looking. And the painful truth is this. Most careers die not from lack of opportunity, but from a lack of private excellence. The kind of quiet self-discipline that says, I will still give my best, even when it doesn't show. That's where greatness is forged, in the gym when it's empty, in the late night reading when others are scrolling, in the fifth draft of the proposal that no one asked for. But most people quit there. Most people tolerate low standards in the dark and hope for recognition in the light. And that doesn't work. Because who you are in secret will always leak into the results you get in public. Always. If you're sloppy with your mornings, you will be scattered in your meetings. If you lie to yourself about progress, you'll be weak in the face of pressure. If you allow mediocrity in your internal world, you will attract it into your external one. You get what you tolerate. And every time you let a low standard slide, just this once, you give permission for decline to become identity. One lazy day becomes a lazy week. One skipped detail becomes a forgotten reputation. One ignored responsibility becomes a missed promotion. Not because you weren't talented, but because you trained yourself to settle. High performers don't rise by accident. They rise because they set a bar in private that would scare most people in public. And they don't compromise with convenience. They don't negotiate with excuses. They don't entertain the soft seduction of good enough. Good enough is the enemy of great forever. So, if your career is stalling, don't look first at the market. Look at your private decisions. What do your evenings say about your discipline? What does your preparation say about your pride? What does your environment say about your future? Because everything you touch flows from the level you've decided to operate at behind the scenes. If you want to rise, you must raise your private bar. Show up sharper than the job requires. Deliver more than you're paid for. Prepare deeper than you're expected to. Sweat the things that don't matter, because those are the things that build the muscle others never grow. Your future is watching how you behave when no one else is. That's the test. That's the truth. That's the standard. And if you raise it privately, the world will eventually raise its reward publicly. Deadly habit. 3. Avoiding difficult conversations. Most careers don't stall because of lack of knowledge. They stall because of lack of courage. And nothing exposes that faster than your relationship with conflict. If you flinch at feedback, if you retreat from confrontation, if you silence truth in the name of peace, you're not being professional, you're being passive. And passivity is the slow poison of progress. Because difficult conversations are not distractions from your growth, they are your growth. Every time you avoid what must be said, you trade short-term comfort for long-term chaos. You trade authenticity for approval. And worst of all, you betray your own voice in the name of keeping the peace. But peace without honesty is a prison. You can't grow what you're not willing to confront. You can't lead what you're not willing to challenge. You can't protect your integrity while hiding from hard truths. The highest paid professionals, the most respected leaders, The people we call great, they all have one trait in common. They run toward the heat. Not because they like confrontation, but because they know that clarity lives on the other side of courage. Progress lives on the other side of pain. Growth lives on the other side of discomfort. And while everyone else is busy avoiding tension, they're building power through it. Because when you speak truth with strength, with love, with clarity, you activate respect. You awaken alignment. You cut through the fog, and that's when teams move. That's when relationships heal. That's when leadership happens. You cannot be great and soft-spoken in your convictions. You cannot climb and stay silent where it matters. And no, I'm not talking about being loud, arrogant, or aggressive. I'm talking about being honest, calm, clear, direct. The kind of presence that commands a room not through volume, but through truth. If you've been wondering why your influence has plateaued, ask yourself, where have I been silent when I should have spoken? What hard truth am I avoiding because it's uncomfortable? What feedback have I buried because it threatened my ego? You don't grow by avoiding discomfort. You grow by walking into it, eyes open, voice steady, mission intact. And yes, it might shake you, but that trembling is the sound of your backbone getting stronger. Speak when it's easier to stay quiet. Lead when it's easier to shrink. Tell the truth when the lie would make you look better. That's not just career advancement. That's personal power. That's how leaders are made, not in the spotlight, but in the heat of real, raw, risky conversation. And every time you choose it, you break another chain that's been holding you small. Deadly habit 4, consuming more than you create. This one hides in plain sight. It disguises itself as research, as preparation, as learning. But underneath it all, it's still avoidance. Avoidance dressed up as productivity. Because in today's world, it's easier than ever to become a full-time consumer. Podcasts, videos, articles, tips, tricks, webinars, social feeds filled with advice from people you've never met and books you'll never finish. And at first, it feels like progress. You feel smarter. You feel connected. You feel in the game. But you're not. You're just hoarding information while starving execution. And that imbalance is lethal because input without output becomes intellectual obesity. It looks impressive on the surface, but it slows you down where it matters most in action. Greatness doesn't come from what you know. It comes from what you apply, what you ship, what you launch, what you build. And every hour you spend watching someone else's success is an hour you're not crafting your own. Every time you dive into another thread, another video, another motivational clip, instead of picking up your tools and doing the work, you train your mind to seek stimulation over creation. And eventually, you become someone with incredible potential, but nothing to show for it. Your ideas are still in the notebook. Your projects are still on the whiteboard. Your content is still in the drafts. Your greatness is still in development. But the world doesn't reward potential. It rewards proof. And proof only comes from action, creation. Releasing what you've built, even when it's not perfect. Shipping the work, even when you're scared. Stepping into the arena, even when you feel underprepared. You don't rise by watching, you rise by doing. So stop hiding behind the excuse of just learning. You already know enough to begin. You don't need another download, you need a deadline. You don't need another expert's opinion, you need your own voice. You don't need more followers, you need more execution. The most dangerous addiction in the modern career isn't laziness. It's overconsumption. And you'll never build an unforgettable future if your best energy is spent consuming someone else's. From this moment forward, let every new insight demand an equal amount of action. Let every book you read cost you something in real life. Let every piece of knowledge become a challenge. What will I do with this now? Because knowledge without movement is wasted fire. And movement, even messy, imperfect, unfinished, is where everything changes. So consume less, create more, build more, launch more, speak more, contribute more, risk more. And watch what happens when you finally stop preparing and start producing your legacy. Deadly habit 5, waiting to feel ready. This is the habit that has stolen more dreams than failure ever could. The habit that sounds wise, feels safe, looks mature, but is, in truth, the most seductive lie mediocrity ever told. Wait until you're ready. Ready for what? For the fear to vanish? For the path to clear? For the confidence to arrive like a package on your doorstep? That moment will never come. Readiness is not a feeling. It is a decision. And every time you postpone action for the illusion of readiness, you give fear another inch of your future. You train yourself to seek certainty over courage, to require comfort before movement, to wait for permission when you were born to lead. But no champion was ever ready when they began. No world changer ever felt qualified. No visionary ever launched with perfect timing. They simply started in the fog, in the fire, in the midst of doubt. Because the difference between the people who shape history and those who watch from the sidelines is not capability, it's urgency. It's the refusal to wait for external validation, to wait for a better year, to wait for more clarity. No, they move. They build while afraid. They speak while trembling. They rise while bleeding. They go. Because they understand this law. Movement creates momentum, and momentum births mastery. You can't think your way into greatness. You act your way there. And the more you act, the more the fear fades. Not because the world changes, but because you do. Every bold decision rewrites your self-concept. Every leap reshapes your identity. Every uncomfortable step you take forges a version of you that would terrify the one who used to wait. So stop lying to yourself. You're not underprepared. You're not unqualified. You're just undecided. And today, right now, you choose. You choose boldness over delay, progress over perfection, faith over fear. You burn the crutch of maybe later and replace it with the anthem of let's go. Because nothing extraordinary is ever born out of convenience. It is born in chaos. It is born in uncertainty. It is born in movement. Your calling is not waiting for you to feel safe. It is screaming for you to take the next step anyway. So stop waiting to feel ready, because your next level doesn't need a plan. It needs a move. So here we are. 5 deadly habits, 5 invisible thieves, 5 quiet assassins that creep into your life, wearing the mask of normalcy and steal everything sacred from you. Not loudly, not suddenly, but slowly, patiently. Death by compromise, death by softness, death by delay. And if you're not ruthless with them, they will not leave. They will not disappear with time. They will not ease up when you get promoted. They will follow you, haunt you, dominate you, until they've taken the very edge that once made you unstoppable. But not you, not now. Because now you've seen them, named them, stared them in the eye. And once you've seen truth, you can't go back to sleep. Once you've looked at your life without the veil of excuses, without the filter of one day, without the fog of comfort, everything changes. That is the blessing and the burden of awareness. And now that you have it, the only question left is simple. What will you do with it? Will you continue to react, or will you reclaim your direction? Will you lower your standard in the dark, or raise it until your private excellence shocks the world? Will you keep swallowing your truth, or speak with the kind of clarity that commands rooms? Will you stay addicted to consuming, or will you finally become a creator of impact? Will you wait for perfect confidence, perfect timing, perfect circumstances, or will you move now with faith, with fire, with a future too big to delay? You already know the answer. That's why you're still reading. That's why something in your chest is tightening. That's why your bones are humming with the sound of buried purpose waking up. This is not a script anymore. This is not content. This is a confrontation with your potential. This is destiny grabbing you by the collar and saying, enough, it's time. So rise. Not next week. Not when it's easier. Not when you feel more motivated. Now, rise with new standards. Rise with violent clarity. Rise with a spine made of self-respect. Rise with habits that don't sabotage you but serve your future self like royalty. Rise with urgency in your blood and discipline in your bones. Rise like your life depends on it, because it does. Your career is not a title, it's a testament. Your work is not a job, it's your fingerprint on this world. And your legacy will not be written in what you hope to do, it will be written in what you had the courage to begin. So go, break the habits, break the silence, break the cycle, take back your days, command your hours, and live with the kind of ferocity that leaves no room for regret. The world needs the real you, not tomorrow, not when you're ready, but now. And this is how careers are resurrected. This is how greatness is reborn. This is how you begin again for real, for good, forever.